Class is now in session. Welcome to Agents Growth Academy. Today, I want to talk about setting expectations. This is an important thing for anyone who's working with clients, with other employees. It's a critical thing. We have an agent, actually, he's our COO, John. He talks all the time about, you can blow any client off for any amount of time as long as you tell them you're going to do it. And it's kind of a funny saying, but it's true to some degree, right? If you set a client's expectations ahead of time, they'll be much less likely to get skittish and either go shop with several other agents or, whether it's a prospect or if it's a client, setting expectations of what the renewal process might look like, what kind of service is going to happen. We talk in terms of a flight path. You imagine a plane taking off, cruising, and then landing. And if you've ever been on a plane, what does the pilot do at the very beginning of the flight? They come on the microphone, they talk about what the weather is in the destination, what the time is, how long the flight's going to last. If there's turbulence, they'll tell you that ahead of time. I've been on plenty of flights recently where they'll say, we're actually not going to have drink and food service because there's so much turbulence. It's in setting those expectations that I can start to think, I can have a mental picture of what my experience is going to be. So for that particular flight, if there's turbulence, I might know or be thankful that I used the bathroom right before I got on the plane. Maybe I don't want to get up and do that. Or, thank goodness I brought some snacks. Or if you've had enough of those experiences, you learn to bring your own snacks on the planes. But in setting those expectations with clients and prospects, it's so important. We do this also with our colleagues in our own organization. We set expectations from the very beginning through the interview process. Actually, we have roles and responsibilities for that particular seat that they're looking to fill. They are clearly laid out. My father used to call this setting the white lines. If you stay inside the white lines, everything will be great. And we do that for every position. We set those white lines so that people aren't saying, well, is that your responsibility or my responsibility? Who's accountable to that? And accountability is another level of it, is holding folks in any organization accountable to those roles and responsibilities. If they have the expectations set ahead of time of what lane is theirs, it's a whole lot easier to hold them accountable because they've already mentally agreed to that. And a lot of times, most times, they've actually agreed to that in writing, right? Think about it from the perspective of an insurance contract, right? An insurance policy has a whole list of expectations. What's going to be paid, what's not going to be paid, what's covered, what's not covered, exclusions and so on and so forth, right? So setting expectations is crucial when you're working with clients. And I think if you get into that mindset of every conversation that you have, setting the expectations of maybe how that conversation will go. Hey, today, what I want to talk to you about specifically is how are we going to manage these multiple locations from a coverage standpoint? Maybe we have time to talk about something a different day, but today specifically, I want to focus on that. It gets them in the mindset. It gets their wheels spinning about what's going to be discussed. People are much more likely to have a clear head when they have those expectations set for them. But also just from the beginning of a sales process, setting out the expectations for what the process will look like. Hi, so I'm going to work with you to the best of my ability. Here's what I'm going to need from you. I would love to see your existing policies so that I have an idea of the lay of the land. And I can, review those, look through, determine if I feel like there's any gaps or maybe there's some enhancements we can make to the policy if that's the route that you want to go. letting them know how long the process might take. Hey, look, you know, this may take, we're going to have to fill out a supplemental application. This may take a couple of days or so, or a week or however long, right? I think if you set those expectations, you're much more likely to keep that prospect or that client engaged with you throughout the process. John, the same person I was talking about before, I think he's a master of setting those expectations with clients. He works with a couple of niches that are a lot harder to place business for those clients. A little bit more difficult to, go through the underwriting process, but he's got it down to a science and he knows the questions to ask. And I think if you can educate yourself to the best of your ability on what those questions that you need to ask and also what questions you're going to get asked back and be prepared for those answers, then you having the expectation of what they're going to ask you, you're going to be in a much better position to be able to help them, keep them on the line, make sure that you're walking them through the process. But what John does is to even talk to them ahead of time on some of these harder to place niche business clients. Is he'll just tell them up front, hey, listen, I can tell you that the general range for this particular coverage that you're looking for, given what you've told me, is going to be between this and this. I mean, oftentimes he'll get clients or prospects that say, nah, no thanks, don't worry. And John will say, that's fine, no problem. I want to let you know, you're not going to find that in most other places, but feel free to go shop. I'll tell you even some questions that you might want to ask them. And it puts you in a position of power from their perspective, and also a position of respect to say, listen, I respect you as a prospective client, and I'm telling you the questions that you're probably going to get. I'm happy to continue asking them and letting you know. But if you do want to go somewhere else, here's what they're going to ask you. And you might want to go ahead and prepare this and get this document ready and so forth and so on. I cannot tell you how many times clients or prospects have called him back even a month, 2 months later and said, you know what? You were right, John. You told me exactly what the price was going to be. You nailed it. You told me exactly what they were going to ask me. You nailed it. And you know what? I came back to you and instead of working with somebody else, quite candidly, because you shot straight with me and from the very beginning. And I really respect that. I can't tell you how often that happens with him. And I've seen it with other agents too. But it's in setting those expectations from the very beginning. It helps guide the client through the process and makes them much more likely to stick around through the process. One that in our industry can take a little bit of time, can be a little bit frustrating, can have a lot of different documents that they need to produce and information that they need to produce. And if you're going to invest your time, quite candidly, in filling out supplemental applications and going back and forth with underwriting, why wouldn't you want to set those expectations ahead of time so that if they balk at it and say, you know what, I'm going to just go see for myself, fine, go for it. It saves you a lot of time as the agent. And then in the end, like I said, in the case with John, oftentimes they will come back because all you've done is set their expectation and made their experience more predictable, which is exactly the point of setting those expectations. So stick around, more great episodes coming. Grow big or go home.